Okay, beautiful rising. So, wanted to chop it up real quick, and I was listening to the Catholic radio, and they were talking about a video that they were going to do later, but it was pretty much about like no kid left behind, children not being able to read. I guess I want to find this particular story, but pretty much she said a couple individuals in class were giving a couple sentences to read, and I don't even know what grade this was. But she said they were unable to read the few sentences that they were given. And of course, that's alarming. But I know Baltimore has been having issues with like math and reading. There's a couple other states that have been having issues with the basic arithmetic, reading, writing, comprehension, like the basics. And that's why I said like a lot of this is becoming more concerning than actually I would want to know. Like that's why I said like when I started researching it, I was just like, geez, like it's actually there's a lot of issues within the system, and it's not just one state. And I wanted to go over it because I've seen it within my own life, like children not really having effort to do work. They turning in all they work late. They're barely participating. You know what I mean? If their peers around them are not engaged and don't really care, like it's and that's who they hang out with, that's exactly what they're gonna absorb. They're gonna be children that turn late working, don't participate, and don't really care for school. And it's kind of hard to see because it's like, education is still important. They're still pushing for folks to get these good degrees, or you can do whatever you really want to do in life. I really try to teach my children that they can do whatever it is that they really want to do. But a lot of the times what they really want to do is just be lazy, you know? So you got to keep your foot on their neck. And that's what I'm saying, like, I think parenting, there is no like right or wrong. There is definitely wrongs, but I don't think there's necessarily always a right answer. So then it's just like, it's just like trial, it's like trial and error. Trying to figure out what works for your children, what works for this child may not work for this child. So then you got to switch it up. It just like, it's constant like that when it comes to raising children. But then to hear that, like, and a lot of this starts off at home, I realize. That's why I said, like, if you decide to have children, you definitely need a parent that's like, I'm not saying in the education system, but know how it works, like they care. That's why I said, like, that's why it's hard. That's why it's like discernment and all this stuff is like, it's key, because the type of child that you want to build may not be with the person that you're with. They may not be able to give you that level of commitment to raising the family. And to some people, that's not a big deal. But then when you start thinking about how you raising your children and how they operate and how you used to operate, and like what worked for you and what may not work, but then you don't know their childhood. That's why I said like discernment is real. I don't say you could be raising your child with somebody that don't say that don't really comprehend the same stuff that you're trying to comprehend when it comes to like raising children. So it can become a headache. And then on top of that, that says some folk don't know how their child is gonna operate. You sitting there watching it. Don't say you might act like you know. That's why I say like kids love to and I think this is a teenager thing. Kids love to let you know that you don't know them. And it's just like, okay. I mean, that's why I say like, and these kids, like, they be thinking like the way that they live is gonna be like, is like the right way. And that's why like, it's so many points to kind of hit on this, because like you want to keep them close to God. You want them to have an understanding of the world. You want them to have friends, but you don't want them to have friends that's gonna use them. And that's why I say like a lot of that, like back to back, it can become overwhelming, especially for your kid. Like if they're dealing with peer pressure, if they're dealing with bullying. Shoot, on top of the kids not being able to read, it's a lot of bullying going on and a lot of peer pressure. So then these kids don't even feel like they can learn because they got to go with the crowd, or they're such a minority wherever they're at, they're getting picked on and they don't really know how to isolate themselves. So here I am trying to figure out how to relearn myself, and then I got to make sure my kids understand and comprehend and pop up on them. I don't even like my kids being too far. Like if I can't pull up on my child's school, I feel like it's too far, because especially how kids act, I like to pull up on my child. Just like my grandma and my mama did me, mainly my grandma. But she pulled up on your boy fast. They was like, your grandma around the corner, she's on the way. I'm like, Bro, I used to get my ass whooped right then and there, yo. Then got it again when I got home. That's what I said. These kids, they really don't know. Like, let me go get my schoolwork done. Because I could talk about kids all day.